Welcome to a world of mystery and wonder. A world that still holds places that feel unfinished. Places where the earth seems to be thinking out loud. Where mountains breathe clouds and rivers remember stories older than language itself. China, vast, restless, and endlessly layered, contains entire worlds within her borders. Here, stone, water, and sky do not simply coexist. They converse. Today, we begin a journey across China's hidden mountain worlds. From red sandstone labyrinths to volcanic cliffs. From cloud forests to glacial mirrors. To uncover how nature, culture, and time shaped one of Earth's greatest living masterpieces. Imagine a forest without trees. A place where the ground itself seems to rise upward. Not in leaves and branches, but in stone. In China's Hunan province, more than 3,000 sandstone pillars rise straight into the clouds. Some reach heights of over 200 meters. Each stands alone. Yet together, they form a silent army of giants. This is Wulingyuan. Unlike limestone landscapes found in many parts of the world, these pillars are made of quartz sandstone, a rock known for its strength and its resistance to erosion. Their story was not shaped by sudden disaster. There was no single collapse, no dramatic moment. Wulingyuan was shaped by patience. Over the last 380 million years, the land here slowly rose and fractured. Rainwater seeped into tiny cracks. Temperatures dropped. Water froze, expanded, and pushed the stone apart. Then it thawed, again, and again, and again. This process, known as freeze-thaw weathering, worked like a careful sculptor, removing the weak and leaving only what could endure. What remains today is not randomness. It is selection. Forests cling to vertical walls where soil barely exists. Roots anchor themselves into fractures thinner than a hand. Mist drifts between pillars. Slow and weightless, like memory moving through a forgotten city. From above, the landscape feels unreal. From below, it feels overwhelming. When filmmakers searched for inspiration for floating mountains, they came here. But even cinema could only borrow the shape, not the depth of time behind it. Standing among these pillars, I'm struck by how quietly they challenge the modern world. Nothing here was rushed, nothing was forced. There were no shortcuts. Every surviving column is the result of repetition. Pressure applied slowly, over spans of time, far beyond human attention. In a world obsessed with speed, Wulingyuan offers a different lesson. Nature never hurries, and yet it never fails to finish its work. Some mountains do not rise from the land, they rise from the clouds. Mount Fanjing appears suddenly through the mist of Guizhou province, its twin summits balanced like temples floating in the air. At first glance, it feels unreal, as if the mountain itself is suspended between worlds. But beyond its beauty lies something far more fragile. Fanjingshan is one of China's most important biological sanctuaries. Within its steep slopes and isolated ridges live more than 3,700 plant species and hundreds of vertebrates. Many of them exist nowhere else on Earth. Among them is the Guizhou golden snub-nosed monkey, a primate adapted to cold, fog, and altitude, surviving in conditions where most species would disappear. This isolation is not accidental. Fanjingshan rose more than 2,500 meters above sea level, separated from surrounding lowlands by time and terrain. During past ice ages, while glaciers advanced elsewhere, this mountain became a refuge, a living archive of ancient life. Every droplet of fog here carries moisture, nutrients, and microscopic seeds. Clouds do not merely pass through this mountain, they sustain it. In 2018, Fanjingshan was recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Not because it is dramatic, but because it is irreplaceable. Walking through its cloud forests, I'm struck by how quiet everything feels. Not empty, but protected. Sound travels differently here. Movement slows. Even thought seems to soften. When the clouds finally part, the twin summits reveal narrow stairways carved into stone. Paths once climbed by pilgrims seeking meaning, not views. Standing there, I begin to understand why ancient travelers called this place a stairway between heaven and earth. Not because it reaches the sky, but because it reminds us how rare balance truly is, and how easily it can be lost. Travel far enough, and even forests forget how to grow leaves. In China's Yunnan province, stone replaces wood. The stone forest of Shilin rises from the ground like waves frozen mid-storm, towering limestone blades, some reaching 40 meters in height. This landscape began its story more than 270 million years ago, when this region lay beneath a shallow tropical sea. Layer by layer, shells and sediments settled, slowly hardening into limestone. Rainwater, slightly acidic, seeped into cracks in the rock. Grain by grain, it dissolved the stone, carving sharp ridges, corridors, and towers. This process never stopped. It only slowed. What we see today is a frozen ocean, not of water, but of time. To geologists, this is karst topography, a natural sculpture shaped by dissolution and erosion. To the Sani people, part of the Yi minority, this place is a Shima's forest, named after a young woman whose love, according to legend, was so strong that it turned her into stone. Walking among these pillars, I'm struck by how naturally myth and science coexist here. Science explains how the stone was formed. Myth explains why it feels alive. Both perspectives matter, because without science, we lose understanding, and without myth, we lose connection. Together, they remind us that landscapes are not just shaped by water and time, but by the stories we choose to tell about them. And that is why, even after hundreds of millions of years, this stone forest still moves us. Every peaceful landscape hides a violent past. Along China's eastern coast, the Yandang Mountains rise from what was once a land ruled by fire. More than 25 million years ago, this region sat above deep fractures in the Earth's crust. Volcanoes erupted repeatedly, pouring molten basalt across the surface. Layer after layer cooled and hardened, stacking like pages of a diary written in lava. Over time, tectonic forces lifted the land. Rain began its slow work. Water followed cracks left behind by ancient eruptions, cutting channels through stone that had once flowed like liquid. Fire shaped the foundation. Water finished the sculpture. Today, the Yandang Mountains feel almost gentle. Waterfalls spill from volcanic cliffs. Bamboo valleys soften sharp edges. Moss and vines reclaim rock that once burned red hot. Yet the past is never erased. Basalt columns still reveal the direction of ancient lava flows. Mineral bands mark pauses between eruptions. To geologists, this landscape is a textbook, a visible record of volcanic evolution along the Pacific margin. To local communities, however, the mountains tell a different story. They speak of dragons sleeping beneath the peaks, creatures of fire and water, resting but never gone. Walking here, I find it difficult to choose between these explanations, because both are true in their own way. Science explains how the land was born. Myth explains how people learned to live with its power. Yandang reminds us that beauty is often a second act. What remains after destruction has passed, and that even the most violent beginnings can, with time, learn how to breathe again. Sometimes, faith does not simply adapt to the landscape. It reshapes it. Mount Imei rises from the Sichuan Basin, climbing through 4 distinct ecosystems, from humid subtropical forests at its base to mist, rock, and snow near its summit. As elevation changes, so does life. Broadleaf trees give way to conifers, birdsong thins, air cools, and along narrow paths, carved into stone, ancient temples cling to cliffs, structures that refuse to disappear into history. For more than 2,000 years, Mount Imei has been one of China's most sacred Buddhist mountains. Monks climbed not for views, but for understanding. Each step upward was meant to mirror an inward journey. But the mountain's most extraordinary expression of faith waits below. At the foot of Mount Imei, where 3 rivers converge, stands the Leshan giant Buddha. 71 meters tall, carved directly into a red sandstone cliff. Its gaze fixed calmly on the water below. Construction began in the year 713, during China's Tang dynasty. A time of cultural confidence, but also of danger. The rivers here were violent and unpredictable. Boats capsized, lives were lost. A Buddhist monk proposed a solution. Not walls, not weapons, but faith carved into stone. As the Buddha was carved, tons of rock fell into the river. The currents changed, the waters calmed. But the true genius lay hidden beneath the surface. Engineers carved an internal drainage system, channels embedded in the Buddha's hair, neck, and robe, designed to divert rainwater away from the statue's core. More than 1,000 years later, that system still works. The stone still breathes, the river still flows, and the Buddha still watches. Standing here, I'm struck by how different this monument feels from others around the world. It does not dominate the landscape, it collaborates with it. Some monuments ask the divine for protection. This one became the protection itself. Mount Imei and the Leishan Buddha remind us that belief, at its best, is not about escape from nature, but harmony with it. Stone, water, faith, and time, all moving together. And sometimes, that balance lasts longer than any empire ever could. What if faith could be archived in rock? Along the Yi River, near the ancient city of Luoyang, limestone cliffs rise, not as bare stone, but as a vast record of belief. At the Longmen Grottos, more than 100,000 carvings fill over 2,000 caves and niches. Buddhas, guardians, musicians, kings. Most were carved between the 5th and 8th centuries, during the Northern Wei and Tang dynasties, a time when devotion, art, and political power were deeply intertwined. Each figure was shaped by hand. Each face frozen mid-prayer. Not rushed, not replicated, but offered one strike of the chisel at a time. As sunlight moves across the cliff face, shadows slide gently over stone. Expressions seem to change. A smile appears, a gaze softens. And for a brief moment, history feels alive. This was never decoration. These carvings were not made to impress from a distance. They were acts of devotion, physical prayers embedded into the landscape itself. Walking beneath these cliffs, I'm struck by the scale of patience involved. Generations worked on the same stone walls, knowing they would never see the project finished. That may be the most powerful message Longmen leaves behind. Faith here was not about permanence for the individual, but continuity for those who would follow. Stone records pressure, but here it also records hope. This is devotion, written not on paper, not in memory, but in geology itself. Stillness does not last forever. At the border of Shaanxi and Shanxi provinces, China's Yellow River is suddenly forced to change its mind. After flowing wide and patient for thousands of kilometers, it narrows violently, compressed into a rocky channel barely 30 meters across. Then it falls. This is Huku Waterfall. Here, the Yellow River drops nearly 20 meters, crashing into stone with such force that water turns instantly into mist. In flood season, the river expands and roars, its spray visible from kilometers away. The sound is overwhelming. It fills the air, it fills the body. Locals speak of a dragon trapped beneath the river, thrashing against stone, trying to break free. Scientists speak of hydrodynamics, of pressure and volume forced through a narrow throat. Standing here, it's hard to choose which explanation feels more accurate. Because Huku is not just water in motion. It is momentum made visible. A reminder that even the longest, calmest journeys contain moments of unstoppable force. And that sometimes the earth does not whisper. It roars. Some forests never forgot the Ice Age. Deep within the Daba Mountains of central China, Shenongjia rises as a green labyrinth, a place shaped less by conquest and more by survival. While glaciers advanced and retreated across much of the planet, this region remained largely untouched. Its valleys and slopes became a refuge, a quiet shelter for life that vanished elsewhere. Today, Shenongjia is home to thousands of plant species, hundreds of animals, and an extraordinary number of endemics, species found nowhere else on Earth. Clouded leopards move silently through dense undergrowth. Golden snub-nosed monkeys navigate the canopy. Ancient tree species, once widespread across Asia, continue to grow here, protected by altitude, isolation, and time. This forest is not frozen in the past. It is alive because it remembers. Scientists consider Shenongjia a living archive. During past climate shifts, when colder, drier conditions erased ecosystems elsewhere, this region provided stability, allowing species to adapt rather than disappear. In recognition of its importance, Shenongjia holds a rare distinction. It is simultaneously designated as a World Heritage Site, a Biosphere Reserve, and a Global Geopark. Few places on Earth carry all three. But beyond titles and classifications, there is something deeply personal about walking here. Beneath trunks older than nations, time feels different. The forest does not rush. It does not demand attention. It simply continues. I found myself thinking about extinction. How often we treat it as inevitable, as if loss were a natural conclusion. But Shenongjia tells a quieter story. Extinction is not always caused by catastrophe. Sometimes it is caused by forgetting. Forgetting to protect, forgetting to slow down. Forgetting that survival often depends on patience. This forest endured not because it was strong, but because it was left alone. And standing beneath its canopy, I realized something unexpected. Life does not always need intervention to survive. Sometimes it simply needs space and time to remember how. Sometimes, the sky leaves reflections behind. High in the Tian Shan Mountains of Xinjiang, glaciers and clouds gather around a single, quiet basin. At nearly 2,000 meters above sea level, Tianqi Lake rests in stillness. A mirror so clear that the horizon seems to disappear. Mountains lean toward their own reflections. Clouds dissolve into water. For a moment, it becomes impossible to tell where the sky ends and the earth begins. This lake was formed by ancient glacial movement. As ice advanced and retreated, it carved a hollow into the mountains, leaving behind a basin fed by snowmelt and seasonal thaw. These glaciers move slowly, almost imperceptibly. But over centuries, they shape valleys, control rivers, and sustain life far beyond these peaks. Below the mountains, their meltwater feeds grasslands, where herders still guide flocks, much as they did generations ago. Season by season, human rhythm follows the rhythm of ice. Standing beside Tianqi, I'm struck by how calm everything appears, and how delicate that calm truly is. Glaciers are not permanent. They are records of temperature, of time, of balance. As the climate shifts, these frozen archives retreat quietly. The mirror remains, but the reflection is changing. Here, heaven feels close enough to touch, yet it also feels fragile, dependent on conditions that can be altered faster than we expect. Tianqi does not warn, it reflects. And sometimes, what we see in that reflection is our responsibility. Balance is not stillness, it is controlled movement. On the slopes of Mount Song, philosophy learned how to move. Here, at the Shaolin Monastery, martial arts were never meant for conquest. They were designed for control of breath, of body, of intention. Shaolin was founded in the 5th century, during a time of political fragmentation and uncertainty. Monks needed discipline not only for defense, but for clarity of mind. Movement became meditation. Repetition became understanding. Each stance mirrored balance. Each strike required restraint. But long before monks arrived, the mountain itself was already teaching the same lesson. Mount Song is among the oldest geological formations in China. Some of its rocks date back more than 2 billion years, formed when the Earth's crust was still learning how to stabilize itself. Layer by layer, pressure shaped stone. Not through chaos, but through persistence. Walking through the monastery grounds, I notice how nothing feels excessive. Courtyards are simple, movements are precise, silence carries weight. Here, strength is not displayed, it is contained. That idea feels increasingly rare. In a modern world that rewards speed and reaction, Shaolin offers an alternative definition of power. Not force, but control. Not dominance, but alignment. The mountain endures. The practice continues. Stone became discipline. Discipline became culture. And balance, learned not by standing still, but by moving with intention. Here, humans are visitors, not owners. The Tibetan plateau stretches beyond imagination. Often called the roof of the world, it rises more than 4,000 meters above sea level, covering an area larger than Western Europe. From here, Asia's greatest rivers are born. The Yangtze, the Yellow River, the Mekong, the Indus. Water that sustains billions of lives begins as silence, snow, and slow-moving ice. At this altitude, the air thins. Every breath becomes deliberate. Every movement is measured. The land offers no comfort, only honesty. Salt lakes reflect galaxies. Snow peaks glow gold at sunrise, then fade back into shadow. Wind moves across open plains, with nothing to stop it, carrying sound and then taking it away. This silence is not empty. It is full. It carries the weight of glaciers, vast reserves of frozen time. These ice fields act as Earth's memory, recording temperature, precipitation, and balance across millennia. When the ice retreats, it does so quietly. No alarm, no announcement, only change. Life here adapts rather than resists. Yaks move slowly, built for thin air and cold ground. Nomadic herders follow seasonal rhythms unchanged for centuries. Not out of tradition alone, but because the land allows no alternative. On the plateau, control is an illusion. Survival comes from alignment. Standing in this vastness, I become acutely aware of scale. Human time feels brief. Human certainty feels fragile. Here, nothing is designed for convenience. Nothing exists to serve us. And yet this may be one of the most generous places on Earth, because it reveals something rare. What the planet sounds like when it is still healthy. In a world increasingly shaped by extraction and acceleration, the Tibetan Plateau resists both. It does not adapt to us. We must adapt to it. And perhaps that is the lesson it offers. That stewardship begins with humility. That respect begins with distance. That sometimes the most responsible thing a visitor can do is leave no trace and take only understanding. Here, under endless sky, the earth does not speak loudly. It doesn't need to. It simply exists, balanced, resilient, and watching to see whether we are capable of listening. Creation and destruction share the same tools. In western Xinjiang, far from rivers and forests, the land tells a harsher story. Here, wind carved cities from stone. Over millions of years, sandstorms stripped away softer layers of rock and clay, leaving behind towers, corridors, and walls. A landscape known as the Yarden landform. From a distance, it resembles a city abandoned by time. There were no builders here, no architects, only wind, persistent, unforgiving, patient. By day, the stone glows red and gold beneath the sun. By night, the temperature drops and wind rushes through narrow passages. It whistles, it echoes. Locals once believed spirits lived among these ruins, not because the place was cursed, but because it felt alive. Walking through this landscape, I'm struck by how uncomfortable its beauty can be. There is no shelter here, no softness, no promise of safety. And yet, it feels honest, because this place reminds us of something easy to forget. Beauty does not always comfort, but it always tells the truth. About time, about endurance, about how creation and destruction are never truly separate. Here, the earth does not explain itself. It simply stands and lets the wind finish speaking. These landscapes are not scenery. They are memory. Each mountain records pressure. Each forest stores time. Each river carries stories older than language. When we preserve these places, we are not protecting something distant or abstract. We are preserving the living archive of the planet and our place within it. It's easy to think of nature as something separate from us, something to visit, something to photograph, something to leave behind. But these landscapes shape the climates we depend on, the water we drink, and the balance that allows life to continue. To lose them is not just to lose beauty, it is to lose memory. Walking through mountains, forests, deserts, and plateaus, one truth becomes clear. The earth is not silent. It is always whispering, through wind, through stone, through ice and water. The question is not whether the planet speaks. The question is whether we are willing to slow down and listen. From stone pillars to frozen silence, these hidden worlds remind us of one truth. Wonder is renewable, but only if we protect it. These places do not belong to us. We are only passing through their story. So travel gently, film wisely, and leave every landscape able to remember long after we're gone.